They left their language. My mom didn't know how to speak English, neither did my dad. My dad was an accountant. And when they landed in New York and got to Montreal, my dad couldn't speak English, so he got a welder's ticket. And that welder's ticket got him a job in Winnipeg, Manitoba. On 170 Arlington Street was the house that we grew up in. I have 3 sisters, 4, 5, and 6 years older than me. Okay? And that's how life started. So I grew up in Winnipeg in 1969. My mom and dad showed up, and about 3 years later, the first low in my life happened. I was 3 years old and my dad died. I was 14 when I got my first new pair of jeans. 14 when I got my first new pair of jeans.
The young people who apply would probably never have applied for a scholarship before. And when they hear Frank's story, because he walks in the room and he's got the expensive suit and he looks polished and coiffed. And when they hear his story, that he overcame adversity, they take a second look at themselves and they see value in the things that they've done other than the academics, and they have the internal capacity to go forward and apply for other things that will support them. It could be as simple as a bursary, but they have that confidence to do that.
I think each kid has their own story, but the commonality that I've noticed amongst the kids who've won is some ability to face adversity and not simply survive it, but also come to some understanding of themselves within it. Like, all of them know who they are at a really basic level. And so they seem to be able to make better choices when they face new challenges after their really significant experiences with adversity are through.
The main thing that sets it apart is the mentorship. And the challenge to the children to analyze themselves first and then write the essay and look at their strengths and the things that they've overcome. And then when they do win the scholarship, it's the mentorship and the support that goes along with it.
The winners, you know, in terms of the mentorship part of the program, you're really engaged with them throughout, you know, the course of their university career. So you get to know them, and you form, you know, a closer bond, and it's just so rewarding to have that kind of connection.
So that's where she was, that, if you will, because I only met her 3-4 weeks prior to her receiving the scholarship. I never taught her. But since then, I've gotten to know her as her mentor. Interestingly, she was having difficulty with one of her university courses and asked me if she should drop. And I said, "You won the scholarship for a reason. And one of the reasons was your resiliency and overcoming adversity." I said, "I don't care if you fail the course. I do care if you drop the course." She said, "Okay, I won't drop it." And she went from a failing grade to a passing grade.
There's something about them coming to understand that they have a knowledge that is special. They have an experience that is unique, and that actually puts them in good standing. They might go into university with a chip on their shoulder saying, "I came from a tough neighborhood, I came from a tough school," but that chip turns into a foundation because they stand on it and go, "Actually, I know something that really matters about how to live with people who are different, how to work with difference, and how to struggle and achieve that other kids don't have."
Like I was saying, I think that the engagement with the kids directly, it's not just cutting them a check, but we want to be there when they need a helping hand along the way as well, and then the whole return process whereby they could become ambassadors for the scholarship, and pass on that experience to the next generation, kind of thing, of kids coming up. I think those elements are it's a generous scholarship, but it's also way more engaged with the kids than most programs are.
The program is working wonderfully, and I think that is inspiration to the student, even the students who don't get it. That's an inspiration because they understand that success is not just marks. Success is determination, overcoming problems, being a well-rounded student. It's not just being the nerd, the genius. And when they get that, then if they don't win this scholarship, they have more confidence to apply for other things and then proceed and be more successful. I would say it's inspirational.
I wanted to go back to the school that I left, and I wanted to change the story about how I left. And I wanted it to be my story, not someone else's story. I mean, the reality is that when I stood on stage and received a number of different scholarship opportunities. I also received a portfolio that didn't have a grade 12 graduation certificate. And I know the teachers had a story about how I ended up there. And it wasn't the right story. And so I wanted to go back, and the first thing I did was I shared my story with the teachers. You know, here's what I was going through when I was a kid. And all of them knew that I didn't have a dad, and that he had passed away when I was 3, and that my mom was incredibly hardworking. But they didn't know what was going on in my head and my heart, and I really wanted to share that with them first. I also wanted to share it with the students because I know that if someone was in that graduating class that came up on stage and shared their life story, that I would feel much better and maybe less nervous and apprehensive about what my future held for me. And so I felt that I owed it to the students, I owed it to my family, and most importantly, I owed it to myself.
And Frank loves the idea of creating something that hasn't existed before. And so what really drives Frank is not just the notion of business ambition, but the actual real joy of creating something wonderful.